In this video, we're going to take a look at an Excel function called VLOOKUP. The V in VLOOKUP stands for vertical. There are a number of lookup functions. This one is probably one of the simplest. And what it can do is it can take the place of some complicated if functions. Let's take a look at what I've got here in column D. In column D, let's double click on it there. And I'm going to hit escape, and I'm just going to zoom in on the whole thing a little bit here. And so it's a little bit easier to see. Let's double click on it. And I'm using an if-else, and I've got 5 conditions and 5 values. So I've got 10 arguments here. If the number in C2 is greater or equal to 90, put an A in there. If it's greater or equal to 85, put a B in there. If it's greater or equal to 75, put a C in there. If it's greater or equal to 70, put a D. If it's not any of the other ones, then your next to last argument here is true, and your last argument is the value that you want to go in the cell if all of the other logical tests failed. Okay, so that's kind of a long if-else function, but that's okay. Now let's take a look at column E here. I'm going to double click on that one, and that one is really long because I did pluses and minuses. So first I start off with an A, then A minus, then the cutoff for B plus, then the cutoff for B, and so on all the way down to F again. So there are 10 possible letter grades here if I do pluses and minuses. So I'm going to need 10 pairs of arguments. The first one will be a condition. The second one will be the value that's supposed to go in the cell. So I got a total of 20 arguments there. Okay. It's relatively straightforward. You just start at one end of the number line, so 95, and then work your way down to the other end of the number line. But it is kind of long, and it is kind of easy to make a mistake when you're doing something like that. So we're going to look at another way to do it, and that is using the VLOOKUP function. So that's what we're going to do here in column F. So the lookup function works like this. We have a number, in this case 95. We have a table. We want to look for that number in the first column of the table, and if we find it, we want to go over to the next column in the table and return that value. So if there's 95, I go over here, look up, and I find the 95 and return A. If there's a 93, I go over here and I find the 93 and I return A minus. Okay, so that's how it works. So let's go to column F here, and go to our formulas tab, and this is a lookup and reference function. And like I said, there must be 15 to 20 functions here, but we're just going to do the VLOOKUP function. And these are the arguments that we have to provide. We have to tell it, where is the number that we're looking up? Well, the number we're looking up is over here in C2. And my table array is over here, and you don't include the column headings with this because you're not going to look up the word score. You're going to be looking up a number. And when I copy this, this is not going to move. So I need to make that an absolute cell reference, and I can make that an absolute cell reference by hitting function key F4, and that puts my $4 signs in for me. Notice if you tab out of the cell and then come back and hit F4, it will only take the N14 and make it an absolute cell reference. So if you do it right away, it'll take the whole thing and make it absolute. And then the column index number is which column do you want to go to find the value that you're going to be returning, in this case the letter grade. Well, that's column 2 of the table. This is column 1, column M is column 1, and column N is column 2. So you put the number 2 in there. And there's a fourth argument here that we are not going to use right now. We'll use it in a future video. But that's it. So click on OK, and it comes back and tells me that this guy got an A, which is correct. Now let's get our fill handle, and let's copy that all the way down to row 44, I think it is. And we have a problem here, and the problem is everybody's getting an A. These letters in column F should be exactly equal to those in column E. And while we're at it here, I'm going to show you another little trick to try to find out if 2 columns are equal. So all I want to know is E2 equal to F2, and hit enter, and they are. And it looks like I must have done some alignment on this column, because normally logical values like true and false are, I'm going to have to drag this box over a little bit. True and false are normally centered. So wherever the value false appears here, something's wrong. So they should be equal, they're not equal, and so you look through here for false value. If you get all trues, then you can be relatively certain that your formula is correct. And we are clearly incorrect here, so we need to figure out what the deal is. And here's what the deal is. These numbers over here happen to be whole numbers. These numbers here are percents. And percents are actually fractions between 0 and 1, including 1 in this case. If I change the formatting, let's go to the Home tab over here, and let's change the formatting to comma here. And those numbers are actually from, 0 to 1. They're not from 0 to 100. And what happens when I do the lookup function over here is it looks up this, and if there's a number that is bigger than the biggest number in my lookup table, then it simply returns the last value. And the last value here is an A. So everybody's got a score that's bigger than 100. I'm sorry, it's bigger than 1. So everybody's getting an A according to this table. Now, the reason I did this is because when I was originally creating this example, that's the way I created the table. And I had whole numbers over here, and I had fractions over here, and I went to do this, and I thought, something's wrong. So what I want to do is I want to show you how to fix it. And I'm going to just push this out of the way for right now. Let's just put it over there. And so let's fix it. What I want is I want each one of these numbers to be multiplied by 100. So let's go over here to column O, and let's just do equals. And I want the number there, and I want to multiply by 100. Okay. Well, 0 times 100 is still 0, so I'm going to get the little dash there for my formatting. And then I drag them down, and now I've got whole numbers from 0 to 100. And these are the numbers I want to look up. Now, the numbers in your lookup table have to be in the first column. And another thing is they have to be in ascending order. We'll talk about that in a minute, too. So I want to get these numbers over here. So I'm going to leave them selected here. I'm going to do a Control-C to copy them to the clipboard. Then I'm going to go over here, and I want to paste them in. Now, if I go here and just do a plain old paste, then I get some funny stuff. I'm going to hit escape here. I want to get rid of the dancing line. Now, let's see what happens. I had this formula here, and it said take that number times 100. Well, that's what it's supposed to do. And I copied it here, and that's saying take this number and multiply it by 100. And that's the same thing all the way down. So I'm multiplying stuff in column K, which is empty, by 100. I'm going to get 0 all the way down. Well, that's the way the copy and paste works in Excel. If you copy a formula, the formula is normally the default is to use relative cell references. So it is copying relative cell references over here, and the relative cell references are over here, and I copied the formula, not the value. Okay, let's undo that. I'm going to hit undo here. And what I wanted to do was, let's select this stuff again, and let's do a Control-C again, just to make sure it's on the clipboard. Excel clears the clipboard on us quite a bit. And let's go to our paste option up here. And there is a section down here we haven't looked at before. It's called Paste Values. And it will allow the values to be pasted in. And they all do basically the same thing. It's just formatting is the only thing that's going to be different here. So let's, so it'll copy the values in their number formatting. It'll copy the values in the source formatting. I think I want this option right here. So I'm going to click on that. And that did not work. Let me see. Let's try that again. Select those and do a Control-C and a copy, and then click over here. Maybe I didn't click over there. And let's go do a paste, and let's paste the values in. And now we get the numbers from 0 to 100, not numbers from 0 to 1. Since I pasted values in, I don't need stuff over here in column O anymore. I'm just going to hit the delete key. And now if we look over here, notice we didn't have to change this. We just had to change our table. And now if we look all the way down, there's nothing but trues all the way down. So there's a really good chance that the formula we put here in column F is the correct one. Now let's look at some examples over here. Let's take a look at 78. Okay. Well, 78 is not in this table over here. Okay. Well, 78 is at least a C minus because it's greater than or equal to 77, but it's not high enough to get a C. It's in between. So what happens if you got a number that doesn't show up in the table, but it's in between? Well, this is what happens. Excel looks in column M here, and it goes until it finds either the value 78, which it does not, or it finds a number bigger than 78, which is this one right here. And it backs up one. So it backs up to this cell right here, and then it goes across, and it returns a C minus. So that's what it should do. You need a minimum of 80 to get a C. 78 is not 80, but it's greater than or equal to 77, so we return the C minus. Now, the only way that this can work is if the numbers here in column M are in ascending order. So when you've got a situation like this with a whole bunch of different numeric possibilities over here, then these values over here in the first column of your lookup table have to be in ascending order, otherwise the whole thing falls apart. So to use the lookup function, you need a lookup table over here with the values you're going to look up in ascending order in the first column of the table, the value you want returned by the function in the second column of the table, and then you use the VLOOKUP function. And remember that this middle argument here is going to be a reference to the table. And if you're going to copy the formula, then you probably want that to be an absolute cell reference. I can't think of any time when you would not want that to be an absolute cell reference. So that's one example of using the VLOOKUP function in Excel 2019. And we've got some other pages down here at the bottom. We're going to take a look at each one of those and look at some other examples of using our VLOOKUP function as well.